Great game if you have short-term memory loss, making it feel like a new experience every run. Feels like there's too much going on and not enough fully fleshed out. If you don't have 2 other friends to play with in voice chat, don't waste your concept. And I loved Elden Ring. I think we've finally seen a bit of a miss from Foundation. 40 quid one I think just feels Nightreign could be really need to turn very much more interesting. I'm trying to find out.
Oh my god. As of recording, I've played just around 20 hours of Nightreign. In that time, I've played just about every class, done an insane amount of runs, and more importantly, beaten every night boss in the game. And all I can say is I really don't understand the hate at all. I've been watching the review count on Steam because I knew I was going to talk about it in a video, not because I'm some weirdo who cares about other people's opinions. And as of right now, it sits around 70% mostly positive, which is decent. But shortly after its release, it received mixed reviews, with most of the complaints people have about the game all being just about the same things. Things like lack of cross-platform, runs feeling incredibly repetitive, no 2-player mode, and then a lack of randomization and variety as a whole. Oh yeah, I've also seen a few people mad about the lack of new content, but honestly, I don't think that shit matters that much considering they took content from Elden Ring and Dark Souls, but I'm not a Souls-like nerd, so what do I know? I'm actually currently playing Dark Souls 3 for the first time ever, so I guess I'm slowly getting there. Nightreign is the newest in a long line of Souls-like games created by FromSoft. They're responsible for games like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Armored Core, Sekiro, and a plethora of other games.
Nice.
And if you were even remotely involved in the gaming atmosphere, at the very least, you've heard of Elden Ring. I mean, it was fucking everywhere when Casanat was playing it.
If your boyfriend beat Elden Ring, suck his dick, suck his balls.
Now, Nightreign is following a massive success in that of Elden Ring. Not only is it using the same name, but Elden Ring brought millions of new players to the Souls-like genre, meaning that as soon as it was announced at the Game Awards in December of 2024, all eyes were instantly on it, which honestly makes it even weirder to learn that this was the director, I'm not even gonna try to say his name, first time ever directing a project for FromSoft. Well, at least it would be weird if you didn't know that Nightreign was actually conceptualized and being worked on before Elden Ring even came out back in 2022. Yes, you heard me right. Elden Ring Nightreign was already being actively worked on before Elden Ring even came out. I mean, it probably wasn't named that yet, but you get the idea. Nightreign is FromSoft's first time even remotely trying something like this. Instead of following the same formula where you start with a fresh character in a world with an incredibly intricate story and lore that you can't actually learn unless you search out a bunch of random shit because it makes way too much sense for them to just tell you that shit during the game. God, to this day, I still wake up in cold sweats having flashbacks of watching multiple hour-long videos on Elden Ring's lore just so I knew what the hell was going on. But essentially what I'm getting at is that FromSoft decided to dip their toe in the water and transition from Souls-like to roguelike, hence Nightreign. Now, as I said before, I have around 20 hours of actual playing time, like being in a run at all, not just standing around the round table hold. And I can safely say that I've been having an absolute blast playing it. Again, I will preface this by saying I am a casual Souls-like player. If you remember what I said at the start of the video, but I'm not a Souls-like nerd, so what do I know? And you understand that I do, fortunately, both shower and go outside, unlike all you hardcore Souls-like fans. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you shower. Maybe. Since Nightreign has come out, there's been a lot of hate surrounding the game. Well, maybe not a lot, but way more than I was expecting. Of course, it's not a perfect game by any means. I mean, not every game can be as good as, say, Hello Kitty's Island Adventure. I've never played it before, but there's just something about this game that just draws you in. Nightreign is of course not a perfect game. Even so, there was still a plethora of things that I enjoyed about the game. Things like the different classes, the pace of the game, and the majority of the bosses. Starting with the different classes, I've played every class, but the majority of my time was split between Water and Revenant versus, the rest. In my humble opinion, I think they did a really good job with the different classes. They are all, similar, but still feel unique in their own way. They all also have some aspect from a previous Souls game with things like poise tanking from DS1, perfect parry from Sekiro, and of course the Bloodborne mobility. Since I haven't played any of these games, I didn't actually know this at the start. One of my friends actually told me this, so yeah. I'm not going to go through and explain all the different classes. At this point, you've either played them or you just don't care enough to try them. Or you're just a bum who only plays Executor and nothing else because you like the sound it makes when you finally get a perfect block after missing for the last 6 fucking hours. Also, another quick side note, the Iron Eye glaze is crazy. Y'all are sucking him off like there is no tomorrow. Like, I get it, he's good. But y'all acting like that bitch walks on water and turned water into wine. Like, fuck, bro. Holy Outside of the classes, another one of my favorite parts of Nightreign was the variety of bosses, at least when I saw them. In-game, there are around 110 bosses, yet somehow I managed to get pretty much the exact same bosses every time. I'm not really complaining that I'm getting the same bosses because most of the fights are still enjoyable. Most of them. The fucking dumbass worm-face boss can burn in hell. I hate that bitch so much.
You suck!
But it would be nice to fight different bosses from time to time. I mean, my rotation is literally Wormface, Tree Sentinel, Bellbearing Hunter, and the Foreskin Duo. And after fighting them over and over and over, I do come to wonder if there actually is randomization, or am I just locked in a fucking doom cycle for eternity? The last major thing that I really liked about Nightreign was the pace of the game. In my expertise, which isn't much as we've already established, Souls-like games are really meant to be played at a slower pace, with exploration being almost a second motive, as things like new armor and weapons can be found just by beating random enemies. Nightreign takes that concept and essentially eliminates it. Rather than focusing on exploration and seeing what you can find, you have everything you need right there on the map. I mean, just pull that bitch out like Dora the Explorer and you can see it all. The pace of the game is incredibly good in my opinion, really for two different reasons. The first of which is that it allows those of us that are employed have a way to actually enjoy the Souls-like genre without having to overcommit to starting a game, building a character, doing hours of research, and everything that goes on with it. And to those of you that are in my comments right now complaining about what I just said, just know you're who I'm talking about.
Boo! It's a job application.
The second reason the pacing is so good is simply because of the roguelike aspect. The game doesn't feel like it's moving so fast that you don't have time to find and defeat bosses on the map, but it also doesn't give you an overbearing amount of time that makes the game feel really slow and easy. Now, that might not seem like a really big accomplishment, but it's probably a lot harder to do than most would actually think it is. They have to balance the speed of the zone with how long it takes to defeat a boss, while matching runes to feel rewarding without making you feel overpowered, while allowing you to have enough time to traverse the map to get anything specific that you might want. So, like I said, it seems a lot easier than it probably actually is. Now, despite Nightreign being an incredibly fun game, there are still a ton of complaints surrounding the game. As I said at the start, when Nightreign was first released, it was sitting at mixed reviews on Steam. That's now changed with it being mostly positive, but there are still a plethora of complaints going around, with the biggest and arguably the most important being direct multiplayer features that, to put simply, the game just lacks. One of the main multiplayer features that Nightreign lacks is a team communication system. Outside of just randomly pinging the map, there's no way to talk to your team, and since the vast majority of people are playing with randoms, this makes runs so much harder. Another very big multiplayer feature that the game simply doesn't have is duos, which honestly, I can't even wrap my brain around this one. Clearly, FromSoft doesn't understand how hard it is to convince one non-Souls-like player to buy the game, yet alone two. Trust me, I know from experience. Literally, when I try to get one of my friends to buy it, we just be arguing back and forth like these two fucking idiots. I'm all like, buy the game and play with me, and he's all like, shut the fuck up before I throw your head through a wall. You know how it be. Out of all the complaints I hear, this is probably one of the ones that I agree with. I was fortunate enough to have a full stack just about every time I played the game. Shout out my boys. So this didn't really affect me, but I can imagine how people with no friends feel having to deal with some of these issues. Another complaint that I hear fairly often is the lack of guidance at the start. I'm not going to go too much into detail on this one because from my experience in Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, there just is no guidance in these games. There's no tweaker waiting as soon as you start the game going, do you know the way? Like, it's just not a thing. Sure, there are things about the game you just don't know, and yes, it's going to take you a few runs to figure it out, but who fucking cares? Go learn the game and stop bitching that you don't know what's going on the nanosecond you load into the fucking game. And if it really was that big of an issue for you, literally wait 24 hours and I'm sure there's an endless amount of guides on the game as to what you need to do. So, the third main complaint I hear all the time is that buffs you get from weapons and relics mean nothing. I don't agree with this at all. I mean, relics like Magnus heals you, starting armament inflicts a certain status, Flask also heal teammates, are all amazing relics that literally change how you play the game. Sure, some relics are better than others, but that's just how meta progression works in games like this. And honestly, the same goes for the buffs you get from different weapons. Some buffs are just naturally better than others, like increasing damage when two-handing a weapon was really good for me because I always two-hand that thing.
What did he say?
However, things like range weapons do more damage literally meant nothing to me because I stay inside the boss.
What?
Now, this leads me to the last major complaint that I hear super often, and that's runs feeling incredibly repetitive, whether it be bosses, weapons, pathing, whatever. Again, I don't really agree with this statement, other than the bosses always being the same, but I've already touched on that. I don't feel like I ever found myself using the same weapon that often, other than the starting weapon, of course. It seemed like every run I ended up using a different weapon, and I'm pretty sure that there are still weapons that I haven't even used. For all you complaining about how you're always using the same weapon, just remember you are choosing to do that. Just take your big back self over to a different weapon and select it. Like, it's not that hard. Same goes with the pathing. Everyone is so worried about hitting every church on the map. Believe it or not, you don't need to get every flask. There's this wild concept where you just press the dodge button and not get hit. It's honestly that simple. Plus, and I know people are going to disagree with me on this, Nightreign is a $40 game, not even close to a full AAA title price. And it's even cheaper than the Elden Ring DLC. So of course it's going to have less content. All in all, after 20 plus hours, multiple full runs, playing every class, and beating all the Night Lords, I can honestly say Nightreign does not deserve the amount of hate that it's getting. Is it perfect? Hell no. But neither was Elden Ring, and y'all still crowned that bitch Game of the Year, so. Nightreign is FromSoft's first real stab at not only a multiplayer experience, but a new genre in general. And for a company that built its legacy on obscure lore and punishing solo nerds, I think they actually pulled off something incredibly solid. It manages to keep the soul of a Souls-like game. Ha, get what I did there? Soul? Yeah, you got it. Nightreign actually gives casual players, or, people with a job, a way to enjoy the genre without needing a 5-part YouTube breakdown just to understand what a maidenless one is. So to all the hardcore fans out there shitting on the game because it's not a 200-hour slow-paced game with lore that you have to decipher from a piece of moss in the corner of a random cave, maybe go touch some grass, buddy. Sometimes it's okay for a game to just be, fun, and that's exactly what Nightreign is. Fun. This product was brought to you by a Nightreign Glazer.